passages of this lesson just to show that it is possible to work in Ukrainian schools, because if you find, now I'm working on whole brain teaching. Do you remember this technique? And unfortunately there is not a single lesson, not a single word in Russian or in Ukrainian about this technique. Everything is only in English. So I'd like to promote this very technique for the teachers of Ukraine, for Russian teachers and so on. That's why we film some of passages, and then you can become an internet star. I would like you now to read two different pieces of information. You will have 1 minute to read it, and then you will teach each other. My right-hand students will read about the forms of address. You're right, yeah? How to do it informally. And my left-hand students will learn how to do it formally. You have 1 minute to read this information, class.
Yes, yes.
Read.
Yes.
Now I want my left-hand students first to teach my right-hand students how to address, what modes of address to use when you communicate to your friend, to people that you know well, to people that are close to you. My left-hand students, please be attentive, because afterwards you will analyze and you will share the information that you are going to learn. I'm sure that you will learn something new. So you will retell what you are taught now. That's why I want you to be very attentive, and if you want, you can even make notes in your copybooks. I don't think that they will teach you something absolutely new, but nevertheless, you may make notes if you want to do. Okay? Class?
Yes.
Teach!
Okay.
Now.
Как хозяин предельной мастерской, посадив работников по местам, прохаживается по заведению, замечая неподвижность или непривычный, скрипящий, слишком громкий звук веретена, торопливо идет, сдерживает или пускает его в надлежащий ход, так и Анна Павловна, прохаживаясь по своей гостиной, подходила к замолкнувшему или слишком много говорившему кружку и одним словом или перемещением опять заводила равномерную, приличную разговорную машину.
Who is teaching? She's supposed to teach, yes? You have a question? Yes? Okay. Class.
Yes.
Now I want my left-hand students to teach you how to arrest other people's attention and what modes of address to use. Class.
Yes.
Teach.
Okay.
You share.
These words like so, and these words are related to the friends and are for example, so you should dress for men, for women, and miss for young like excuse me, excuse me. Correspondence. In form correspondence, you should tell young, you should speak like dear Mr. Dear, and it's the whole, for example. Or dear dog, dear man, right? For example, dear person by name.
Classity class.
What?
Classity class.
Yes. Yes.
Good. So, I think that it is enough about modes of address, and now I want my right-hand students to share the information that you've learned, that you've been taught. So, what, have you learned anything new from your partner? Yes, I'm sure. Yeah. So what have you learned? What new information about modes of address in different situations have you learned? My right-hand students, your word. You've just learned something.
At the beginning of the letter, we use Mr. or Mrs. Or dear and add full name or just last name.
Last name. Okay. What about the word dear? Is it a universal one? Can it be used in official and unofficial correspondence?
Yes. It is standard greeting.
That's right.
And after this address, we use comma or double full.
Okay. Anything new that you've learned just now, my right-hand students? Alina, have you learned anything from Natasha?
Yes, I've learned that when we address to a young girl, we call Mrs. Miss, and if the woman is married, we call Mrs.
Sometimes, you know, many years ago, it was absolutely obvious that a young girl is not married, that a woman or a girl that is not very young is married. So it was a universal truth for in any country. Nowadays, the situation has changed, and what have they introduced? To be polite for all, not to hurt feelings of young girls, or of not very young girls that are not married. That's right. So not Miss and Mrs., but just Miss. And they write just 2 letters. Yeah? Okay, good. Rodion, have you learned anything from your partner?
I understood that there are many different forms of address are used in business or official letters.
That's right. So not only dear Mr. something, yeah, but there are other ways. If, for example, you don't know the name or the surname of the person, how would you address him or her?
Sir.
Sir, but if it is a woman, madam. If you don't know whether it is a man or a woman, dear sir or madam. If you don't know, dear sir or madam, it's quite okay. Good. Now, my left-hand students, what have you learned from your partners about general rules of addressing and unofficial address?
That the way how we name our person, it depends on how it depends on how he introduced
himself.
Yes.
Aha! It is very important to
Memorize.
And to pay attention.
Yes. For example, when somebody introduces like, I'm James Brown, you should name his Mr. Brown, and if he introduces like, I'm James, you should introduce him Mr. James.
You could address him
Mr. James.
Oh, just James.
James.
And when he says Jim, he's 55 years old, absolutely ruined, but grey, without teeth and so on. But he says Jim. How would you call him?
If it is in formal situation, you can call him
Jim. Yes, he wants to be called Jim.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else that you've learned?
I learned that we use names and surnames with titles Mr., Mrs., Miss, and Miss.
MS. Yeah.
Yes, like Mr. Brown or
That's right.
Miss,
Yeah. So there are special words
Miss
to
Brown.
add to surnames. That's right. Natasha?
I learned that informal forms of address are used in family or with friends. Like we can call our friends just by name, like Jim, Kate, and in family we call like dad, mom, grandma, grandpa without names, and we can use some adjectives like sweet, sweetheart, honey. Yes.
Okay, dear, darling. That's right. So there are some words for family usage.
Also, in informal situations, when we don't know person, we can say stranger, brother, sister, and friend as everyone.
That's right. Yes. Anything else? Have you learned?
Nothing else.
Nothing else? Have you learned any new forms of address in informal situation, except friends? They were mentioned in the list. Guys, very good, yeah, and very, very popular in America, in Canada, and in Great Britain.
Sugar.
Buddy.
Pals. Okay, good. So, do you remember in the previous lesson you told me that you know a lot about modes of address. You know how to address each other. But now it appears that there is much more that we can learn.